Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Podcast, and it is the All-Star break. Officially, Luke Stuckmeyer, Ryan Herrera, and Cody Delmendo with you on a Monday 120. Sarah running the ones and twos. She's back, ladies and gentlemen. Barb will be excited about that. Lots to talk about. The Cubs do have one All-Star at the moment, Shota Imanaga. They have nobody in the home run derby, and we'll see how the Futures game goes. But
it already happened.
It happened? It's over? How did it go?
It
happened?
The two that played didn't do anything.
Okay.
But it happened. Yeah.
So that was a quick recap of that. Then we're done with that. Check that off the list.
The big highlight was that Triantos and Matt Shaw were standing next to Ken Griffey Jr. And they talked ball.
Yeah, they talked ball.
Hopefully Ken Griffey Jr. touched both of them, and they became all-time great future Hall of Famers.
Yeah. Well, there you go. We don't have to spend the third segment of the show talking about that anymore.
Triantos was 0 for 1.
Yeah.
He didn't start again.
Matt Shaw, I think he lined one out to center on a 3-0 pitch.
Yeah, 0 for 2.
Maybe they could play the game again.
Maybe.
Go better.
So you don't miss it?
So I don't miss it. Yeah. We're going to talk a little bit about this Cardinals series. We're going to talk about the state of the Cubs from the unofficial first half of the season. Midsummer Classic here. We're going to ask Cody if he's in or out after a hot weekend against the Cardinals and the week before against the Orioles. And we'll play a game of what I like to call studs and duds. Plus, there might be a Delmendo rant before the show is over. So let's get started. Cubs split against the Cardinals. We had our watch party out in Carroll Stream. I tried the chicken fingers.
They're fantastic.
So did I. Man.
And then the Cubs won game one of that series against the Cardinals, and they start building off the Orioles thing. Then they get swept on Saturday. All the momentum goes out with the Wesneski game. And then they come back and hit 6 home runs in the finale. So, Cody Delmendo, I ask you, are you back in or are you still out?
Well, listen, I asked for a 5-2 week, and they gave me a 5-2 week.
So you're back in.
I would say that I still don't know if I'm back in. Okay, am I back in on believing that they're a playoff team? No. But am I back in on believing that they're not going to just trade significant assets for nothing?
I think the question is, are you back in thinking they're going to get to the playoffs?
No, I'm not back.
Not there.
That, no, but
even
they are
the 5-2 week.
No, because they needed to have it if there was going to be any reason for me to give a shit what happens before the trade deadline. That's why I asked for it. That and the fact that they won that series against the Angels. But I would say, I'm on the path to being led back in, but they still got to do more. But the good news, Luke, is Beer Bats will be back.
Oh, wow.
Officially to start the second half of the season.
Well, they lost a game.
Yeah.
So they lost 2 games, but they lost. So now if I do one, it's not going to affect the juju.
Why did we waste all that time with the Futures game at the top of the show? This is breaking news. This is where you have to come in. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. Cody Delmendo will bring back Beer Bat Chugs in the second half of the season for Cubs baseball. Excuse me.
Let's clarify.
They won 8 of their last 11 games going into the All-Star break. They played better baseball. The first game on Saturday was incredibly annoying for the first 20 minutes. And then the second game was honestly like one of those scripted games that we've talked about way too many times. But, to come back yesterday, hit 6 homers, off noted clown Miles Michaelis, and to at least split the series. Again, I asked for a 5-2 week. I think that was fair. That's a realistic ask, and they did it.
Amazing what happens when you hit home runs, huh?
Yeah. Well, and I think fans feel a little down just because they felt like they needed to win the series against the Cardinals, and I guess because of the tiebreaker and their division rival and all these things, like that's true. But you still swept the Orioles, and you've still have won 2 out of your last 3 series, and you haven't lost the series since the Phillies series on July 4th. or the week of July 4th, right? So you're playing good baseball. You're taking some momentum into the All-Star break. Some guys are going to get healthy over the All-Star break, hopefully. And we'll see. I mean, these final 2 weeks, Corey and Brendan said it best on yesterday's pod, man. Like, these final couple weeks after the break, it's going to be really telling to, like, how much they might actually, quote-unquote, buy or do more of, like, what I feel like they're going to do, which is what they did last year, which is they didn't really buy last year. Like, they kind of did. They, like, put one foot in and the other and kept the other foot out last year. So I think at this point, that's what's more likely to happen is maybe they add a reliever or, you know, maybe they find a bat that, you know, can come off the bench or something. I don't know. I'm not optimistic about any significant ads or guys gone either, like moving guys either, like for the deadline. So to me, the best case scenario still remains is keep playing better.
I don't think
Are
it's
you in or out, Ryan?
Well, I mean, as far as can they make
possibility
the playoff?
they're going to make the playoffs or have a chance.
I mean, I've said all along that I thought this team was like. Of course, obviously, at some point you are what your record tells you, but I did think this team should be better than the record. I don't know. At this point, I don't know if they're a playoff team because they haven't given me given any of us a ton of reason to believe it. But as Cody said, they have played better, and so whether or not I think they're a playoff team, I think they're playing their way back into to a position of last season where it's like, okay, they played their way, they deserve. They took care of business on their end. They deserve to ride out the season and see if they can finish that. I think they're getting close there. I don't know that they're specifically there yet because they're still 4 games under, I believe.
4 games under, 4.5 out of the last wild card spot, and in last place.
Yeah, so you're still in not a particularly good situation or position, but they have played their way into like, okay, this team doesn't need to sell on Friday when the season starts. Like they have given themselves a little bit more room to be like, can we get another couple weeks in the second half and keep playing good baseball, win a couple more series, maybe even sweep another series. I think they've earned that, but I wouldn't say I'm all the way back in on them earning like, okay, we have to go for it. Like I don't think they're there yet, but I think they're getting closer to it. They just need to keep playing good baseball, and that's what we've been saying for weeks. Like even when it was May and June and they just couldn't win a series, we're like, they just need their turnaround just needs to come by them winning series, just win baseball games and win a couple series, and then you feel a little bit better about them. And they managed to do that. You know, obviously they split the Cardinals series, but they swept the Orioles one. I still think, 5-2 at the end of that week when we went into that, you said you feel good about it. I think you do feel good about it. Maybe not as good because of the Cardinals series. Like that Saturday was tough to watch, but no, I think you still feel good after this week, and you can feel like they deserve a little bit more time to see if they can play their way into a better position. I think they're at that point right now.
I can only say that 7 games improved my mood. Okay, but I can't say
That's
7.
Kind of like where I'm at,
right? Like it was just at least fun to watch Cubs baseball for a while when they were hitting. You were like, oh, at least it's positive for a few days.
It's not boring.
But I can't say 7 games have changed my mind about 2.5 months of bad baseball. I just liked watching good defense, for instance, yesterday, and home runs. But it hasn't changed how I feel yet about, I still believe if given the choice of doing one or the other, I still would sell a piece before I would add a piece, unless, of course, that piece is someone that can be a part of the team moving forward for the next couple years, right? Like I saw the rumor about Jansen, the catcher from the Blue Jays, and I've seen, the rumors about the Rock. I don't want rentals. Rentals don't interest me unless you're going to lose that prospect anyway somewhere else. That doesn't really interest me. But I don't want to just sell a guy for no reason either. But I think that I don't believe that they're a playoff team just yet. Could they change my mind in another 2 weeks that they've got a shot? Sure. But again, the sample size of 2.5 months is a lot bigger than the one of 7 games. And I do sort of believe the adage, God, this All-Star break is coming at the worst time. Other than you're trying to get some guys back healthy, like Bellinger and Merriweather all the way back, you mean to tell me they're finally going to hit for the first time since April and play defense and play like this for 7 games, and now we got to take a week off? I don't love it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't love that part.
The thing about selling that, no one's saying in the chat right now because they don't play today and they won yesterday, but it started on July 1st. Or hell, no, it was going on through June. It's like everyone in the chat, and I've referenced this, like people either buy or sell, like the debate about it, and it's just they're not really set up to fully sell. Cody Bellinger was the only guy that they could, and I don't see him coming back before the deadline to change his value any more than it already was at, which was still low. So you'd be selling low on him. So to me, I'm looking at this season. I'm not looking at it like I did last year, where it was like, okay, well, maybe they'll have a chance at the playoffs if they get past the deadline with the team intact. I think this team's going to be pretty much intact past the deadline. And so for me, when I'm thinking about, when you're asking me, am I back in? Do I think they can make the playoffs? I'm with you. I need to see more. But the way I'm looking at it at the same time, too, is I'm looking at the long term, like the next 2.5 months. Yeah, these couple series right out of the All-Star break are important. Arizona in the wild card race. You got to play the Cardinals again. You got to play the Brewers. The one good thing that it's not even really talked about, and it probably doesn't even really matter considering the standings, but the Brewers haven't played well. They didn't play well over the stretch of the Cubs playing well. The Cubs were like 12 games back in the division like a week and a half ago. They're 8.5 now. I know it's 8.5, but we've seen crazy shit happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying that I believe it's going to happen. But this team, I don't think they're going to be broken up. So you have to come out and play hot to start the second half, or at least win series and get yourself to not only 500, but back over 500, and see where you're at the deadline, see how the front office wants to play things. And then you have 2 months to play your best baseball possible that you have. And I'm not even really fully asking like the last week, because the last week you're getting all facets, and that's just unrealistic to assume that you're going to get all facets for 2 straight months. But if you can continue to get the good starting pitching and just have a competent offense, a league average offense with this starting pitching, and the bullpen coming together like it kind of is now with some of these young guys, and maybe they promote some guys like we've kind of been waiting for, and PCA takes off like he kind of did this weekend, and whatever else, maybe, just maybe, they can find themselves there. But like I'm saying, if this happens, maybe, like, I wish I could say here and be like, yeah, I think this is going to definitely happen. This team hasn't proved anything. Everyone that wants to sell, they're like, this team looks like they did last year at this time of the year. They're not getting bought into it, And I don't blame them, because what happened last year was freaking brutal,
Yeah, well, they definitely played their way into a position where you're giving a lot of if this, if that. Like, they've played themselves in position. But on the flip side, and like I said, a few weeks back, like Jed Hoyer does not want to sell. Like, he wants this team to give him any reason to add at the deadline. And so
he has every reason not to sell.
Yeah, exactly.
Personally, too.
Yeah, exactly. So he wants just them to just be like, they just need to play their way. Again, it just all comes down to the team and what they do. They played their way into this position by being bad for a month and a half, 2 months. Now they have the opportunity to play themselves back into a position where Jed's like, okay, I don't have to sell any pieces. I can actually add, right? Like, they have the chance to do that now to begin the second half. They just got to go out and do it. It's always come down to the players and what they have done or didn't do the first half of the season. Now it's still down to them, but they have a position to go on a little run and get Jed to, buy the deadline.
A week from today is the Cookout Classic, our first golf outing of the summer. What the Cubs have done in golf terms is they have parred the 9th hole after 8 bogeys. And now you get to that turn and you're like, you know what? On the back 9, here I come. Mm-hmm. We'll see about that. We're going to talk about the studs and duds coming up in just a bit. But first, want to tell you about Circa Sportsbook. What is it? This is all you need to know. Tight money line splits. You heard me. Get back in your seat. Tight money line splits. The low hold model. Games will strive to be a -110 split on the Circa Sports menu. Unlike other sports books, which may use -115 or -120, Circa Sports keeps as little money as possible on the large market bets, futures, golf tournaments, especially compared to other books. And Circa Sports also does not limit players based on their winnings. Every player has the same limits, unlike other books who try to limit winning players like Cody. Now, we encourage bettors to download and explore all sports betting apps available. That's how confident they are. These are real people also behind the Circa Sports brand who resolve issues in a timely fashion. Don't worry about the chat bots, which are one of the worst things in the world. All aspects of the app are being run by the same team that runs the main Circa Sportsbook at Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas, where our Bulls guys have been waiting in the pool. Beck spent a lot of time in that pool. Download the Circa Sports Illinois app at circasports.com/Illinois-app. Events, watch parties, tailgates. We got them coming up. We got another watch party coming up. We had that great one on Friday. We even had Mark Shanowski come out, huh? Oh. When you get a legend walking into the building, you know you got something. And then you had the chicken fingers, too. Next one coming up is Miller's Ale House in Schaumburg. And that one will be against Kansas City. That's July 26th. And, of course, they're always there for the Friday 120 Club, and that's coming up this Friday right out of the break. Mm-hmm. And they'll be there hanging out with us as well. So if you or someone you know may have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 1-800-426-2537. Text GAMB to 833-234 or visit areyoureallywinning.com.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp, guys. This year has gone so quickly. What's something you're proud of in 2024 so far?
I feel like as far as the events go that we put together, as Luke just talked about Friday 120 Club, I feel like more and more people are coming and hanging out with us. And I think as far as like building a community and stuff, which is the goal of our company, like that we've done.
Friends we've made along the way, as Cody would say.
I feel like we've done a really good job of that.
That's something
this year.
positive.
We definitely have made a lot of friends along the way, right? When life goes so fast, it's important to take a moment to celebrate your wins and make adjustments for the rest of the year. Therapy can help you take stock of your progress and set achievable goals for the next 6 months. If you've benefited from therapy, let's hear it. I started going a good year, beginning of last year. It's definitely helped me out a lot, especially with, just the everyday life that I have. It never stops. And so sometimes I just get really dragged down, and sometimes you just need to talk to someone, man. Especially whenever you hear all kinds of things and you deal with a lot of stuff, right? So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Take a moment, visit BetterHelp.com/CHGO today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/CHGO.
Let's talk studs. You guys probably never saw that, but that was a game show back when I was a kid.
So, yes, I did not see this.
Studs, it was awesome. It was awesome. Okay. It was just a ridiculous
Were there potatoes involved?
I don't even remember how it went. I just remember watching it and laughing all the time. First half studs. Okay. Now we're not going to talk about players off the Cubs because you could say, Ohtani was obviously a stud. Judge was obviously a stud. Skeens has been a stud so far since coming up. Who are the Cubs' first half studs? Cody, pick one and tell us why.
I mean, the easiest one is Shota Imanaga. Shota Imanaga, All-Star, has pitched way better. If anyone expected Shota Imanaga to be an All-Star in year one with the Chicago Cubs coming over from Japan and being touted as like this, number 3, number 4 starter in the rotation for most teams throughout the entire offseason, to see what he has done for this team, I mean, he is number 1 on the list of studs for the Chicago Cubs in 2024.
And probably the second best free agent signing of the offseason, with Ohtani obviously being one and deferring all his money.
Yeah. Right. I mean, Yamamoto's had the injuries, and he's making so much more money. I know he's younger, so, that there's a reason behind that. However, Shota Imanaga has been everything and more for this team. He's become a fan favorite. He goes by Mike. It has Mike in his locker.
Mike Imanaga the second.
I was listening to Justin Steele's podcast the other day, and he mentioned how he saw Shota in the Starbucks recently, and he had forgot the whole Mike thing, and he saw Shota. They, said hello or whatever, and then the Starbucks person called for Mike, and Shota went up and grabbed it. Like, he legitimately said it, like, on his show, explaining how it worked out. And I'm like, this isn't made up. Like, this is a real thing. Like, and the point is he's become a fan favorite, not only because he's absolutely, like, electric on the mound. He shows emotion and is killing it for the Chicago Cubs, but his personality off the field, too. It's coming out, and it's resonating with fans, and it's making baseball fun. It's making somehow, some way, watching the Chicago Cubs every fifth day when he pitches a reason to watch and a reason to want to be excited about possibly winning that day.
Yeah, he was one of the main reasons their record wasn't even worse than it was in the first 3 months or so of the season. Like, I don't remember what the stat was, but it was like when he got made the All-Star team last Sunday when the teams came out, and the Cubs were like 12-4 or something when he started, and 30-45 when he didn't. Something crazy like that. So he's been super important to this team. But I think my pick would be Justin Steele. Like, Shota Imanaga, like he said, is probably the easy number one, but Justin Steele's been right there behind him. I mean, you look at his last 9 starts, right? 1.48 ERA. This stretches back to May 27th. 1.48 ERA. 58 strikeouts, so only 12 walks. This is over 61 innings pitched. So he's been pretty dominant for a good stretch of the season. The things that worked against him, like he could have made the All-Star team this season. The things that obviously worked against him is he wasn't getting the pitcher wins, which, I know you care a little bit more about than us, but it's not his fault, right? Like, he pitched and deserved to have more than the one pitcher win that he got. I think he got maybe 2 right there at the end. But definitely not. He should have had more as far as that, but he obviously didn't. The team wasn't playing well enough to get him more, but that's not on him. So that worked against him, and just the fact that he got hurt on opening day and missed a month worked against him, because I think you throw him out there for that month, and he's just still pitching well, and he comes back and has a couple bad games where he gives up some homers in his first couple starts back, and you're like, I remember people were like nervous about it or concerned about it, and we kind of said, like, his first couple games back, like, it sucks, but we feel like he's going to turn it around, and he did, and he's been really, really good. So if you're talking about first half studs, yes, Shota's probably the easy number one because he did it the whole first half, but I think Justin Steele is right there behind him as far as, like, who do you trust if this team were to make the playoffs? Who do you trust taking the ball, taking the mound, taking the ball for a playoff game? Like, Shota's there and Justin's there, and I think you feel really good about both those guys if it comes down to that.
I'd feel good about either guy if it was a win and move on.
Yeah,
I would want Steele on the mound.
Yeah,
I would want Steele on the mound, and I don't disagree with either one. And I agree that Shota might be ahead just because he's been available more. But I heard Brendan and Corey giving out the facts and saying, listen, in the last 2 years, Steele has the best ERA in baseball. You can't argue it. He's a bona fide ace, and he's homegrown. So I agree. Steele, Shota. If you want to talk Tyone, we can talk Tyone. I think he's had a great first half. I'd give him stud status for the first half of the season. I'll give one that's not even on the Cubs roster. I'll say Ryne Sandberg, who's had a better first half of the season than Ryne Sandberg.
No one else got a
so far,
statue.
He's beating cancer, and he got a statue. I mean, the guy's inspiring people all over the place. He's not playing baseball anymore, but has anybody been more inspiring than Ryne Sandberg in the first half of the season?
That's hard I
would say he's been a pretty big winner in the first half of the season. So I'll say Rhino. As far as another player, I'll say Tyone. Like, it's been those 3 starters, and that's the strength of this team moving into the second half of the season, is having those guys 1, 2, 3 and lining it up. And I don't know who's going to be 4. I don't know if you're going to get a day out of Hendricks like you did against the Cardinals. I don't know if Wicks is going to come back. I don't know if it's going to be Ben Brown. I don't know if it's going to be Assad. But those 3 have been really consistent in the first half of the season. Stud, stud, stud. And offensively, I think the number one guy's pretty easy to see.
Michael Busch.
Michael Busch.
It has to be.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Busch had that, like, however many run where you could see he was going through it, and the normal adjustments for a guy in his first year in the big leagues, and like none of us were shocked by it. It was just kind of like, okay, he's gonna have to make adjustments. How does he get out of it? And he's been doing it for a while now. Like I don't know if the slug has completely been there. I don't think he's hitting like a ton of home runs, but he's got a few. And then he's getting a bunch of extra base hits, which is at the end of the day what you need to score runs is extra base hits. He's been doing really well for a while now. And as far as the offense turning things around, which I think the last maybe week and a half or so, since that Philly series, definitely has looked better. That is the last game of the Philly series, and they scored 10, right?
Yes.
Since that game, the offense has overall looked better, and a lot of it stems from like Michael Busch being one of those guys that's just constantly getting on base, driving in runs, doing the little things offensively that has helped this team his offense just look better. And if as we talked about all show already, like if they're gonna make a run and or at least these last couple of weeks of July, like forced Jed to like really buy, a lot of it's gonna have to come down from the offense continuing to put up good performances. And right now, and then for a while now, Michael Busch has been one of those guys leading the way for him.
Yeah. Michael Busch,
and also the fact that it's his first full year in the big leagues is like. It's a good sign for him. That
he's already like a 2.4 F4, something like that. Like, I think the season projections had him to be that for the year. Like, we still have 2.5 more months to play, to see him adjust the way he did, because his April was awesome. And I think when they came back from that West Coast road trip in mid to late April, that's when, the strikeouts started to really rise. Yeah. And he started to struggle a little bit. That went into May, continued into May, and however long it took, I would say since, late May to and through all of June and up to now, like he's been as good as you could have hoped for. He's at least cemented himself as the future first baseman for this team for the foreseeable future. I mean, we're talking about when Bellinger comes back, it's like, well, Bellinger, like, even Busch has improved defensively at first base this year. He made multiple incredible plays at first base this weekend.
Definitely improved.
That's right? A big part
compared to opening day when and going through April and watching him go through the struggles of not able to pick a ball sometimes, or going for a ball on the second base side that Nico should have been going for and he should have been going to first base that led to an infield hit or something like that. Like these little things, like we saw that a lot at the beginning of the year. He's become very, very good over at first base. So when Bellinger comes back, it's like you're going to have to play him in right field and DH Seiya more. And then that makes me wonder about how they're going to do things with Morel. If Morel doesn't hit, he might be the odd man out. And that pains me to say that. But, like, if he doesn't start performing and this team's trying to win games, and those guys are performing, it's one of those things that I'm very curious to see how Craig Counsell manages it. Because as we've seen, especially over this good stretch of baseball, they've been DHing Morel a lot more because Mastroboni's been great defensively over at third. And a large part of why this has been happening is because Bellinger got hurt. But he will be back. And the whole point is the fact that you don't really, like, you can play Bellinger at first base if you want to DH Busch one day, I guess. But it's one of those things where it's like, it's a good problem to have, I think, because if Michael Busch is going to continue to play like this, you got yourself set at first base. It's awesome because that's been a massive problem since the day they traded Anthony Rizzo back in 2021.
Who's going to play first base?
Off the top of my head, there are only two other players I can think of that could receive stud status for the first half. One is Happ, who has turned it around and took a lot of heat, but now when you look at him, he's, like 2.6 WAR. He's got 15 homers. He's hitting 240. He's playing better defense. I can't give it to Morel. I can't give it to Bellinger. I can't give it to Seiya because it hasn't been consistent. I can't give it to a lot of guys. I could maybe throw in two other guys. I take that back. Tauchman, for a good stretch of the season, was definitely a stud and was doing what you want. And the other, I would say Leiter, was doing his job most of the time. So now we get ready to do who are the duds, and that will be fun because I know that Cody's going to tell us Jim Edmonds is one of them. But first, we want to tell you about our friends at Blue Moon. Some beers can say they're brewed for baseball, but only Blue Moon is brewed by baseball. Beer and baseball just go together, and no beer goes better than the one that was literally born in a ballpark. Blue Moon was created at Coors Field in Denver, Colorado. It's the natural choice all season long or during the All-Star break. Summertime shy, you're waiting out the heat. It's going to be like 100 degrees heat index again this afternoon. Oof. Give me a Blue Moon to cool off. And then when the thunderstorms hit tonight or the tornado tries to take me away, give me a Blue Moon in my hand if I'm going up in a tornado. Nothing beats watching baseball or lounging by the pool like an ice-cold Blue Moon and a slice of orange. Blue Moon, brewed by baseball to give you a dose of nostalgia. A beer this good only comes around when? Every once in a blue moon. But you can enjoy it all season long. Bring the ballpark to you. Blue Moon, Belgian-style wheat ale. One of a kind every time. Get Blue Moon delivered by visiting get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO to see your delivery options. That's getbluemoonbeer.com/CHGO. Blue Moon, made brighter. Celebrate responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. They were flowing at our watch party on Friday.
They absolutely were.
Good deals at the watch party on Blue Moon.
We had
Two
so
special
much fun.
deals.
Yeah.
We did have a lot of fun. The Blue Moon helped it out.
Yeah.
Blue Moon was there having fun with us. But let me tell you about Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Friday 120 Club this Friday. If you want to join them at the game, bleachers or not, you can always join them pregame and then head to the game. You can buy your tickets with Game Time. Promise you, you won't find a better deal anywhere. Or else, one of the things that I love about Game Time is that they match you, or they give us 110% of the difference or of the. Let me get back to that part real quick. Game Time. Something I love about Game Time is the fact that they show you the view from your seat. When you pick, that's huge because if you've never been to Wrigley Field, if you've never been to Wrigley Field, you don't know exactly what your view is going to be. You might be like our friend Susie Hunter and get obstructed by a pole. But with Game Time, if you can go ahead and check your seat before that, and you know exactly what your view is going to be when you do it. They got priority last minute deals. You save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Flash deals, you save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. With zone deals, you can save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. They're all in pricing. You toggle the feature, and it shows your total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. And, like I said earlier, the lowest price guarantee, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you don't get it with Game Time. So that's huge as well. And then the Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHGO for $20 off. Download the Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Wait, you bought your Def Leppard tickets on Game Time. Is that tonight?
It is tonight.
Oh man, hope the tornadoes hold off.
Oh.
I saw Foo Fighters at Lollapalooza that one time, and that was the closest thing to the movie Ghostbusters that I've ever seen, and it was dangerous. I hope it's not. I hope they get this concert in tonight because that's a good one.
Well, let me tell you, after what I saw in the sky last night, if it looks anything like that, the ticket wasn't so much to where I'm like, I have to go.
Are you covered? Are you in the covered area of Wrigley?
Yeah, I'm in the 400 section.
Well, then you're fine.
Yeah.
And you can always go down to the concourse if it gets really nasty.
Yeah, but
I'm sure a porta potty might come flying through the section and hit somebody, but
sure. I'm very much teeter-tottering on it right now. But I mean, again, because of Game Time, I got the ticket really cheap.
There you go.
Best Def Leppard song. Is it Pour Some Sugar on Me? Is it Hysteria? Is it I don't know.
Hysteria for me.
I like the newer Def Leppard stuff even more than I like old Def Leppard. I think it's Hysteria, then Pour Some Sugar on Me.
Yeah, they're both great songs. Shout out to my mom. She's the reason that I even know who they are to begin with.
Def Leppard.
Yeah.
Def Leppard.
And that's who else is it? Journey.
Journey and the Steve Miller Band.
Oh, Steve Miller Band's good. Yeah. Joker.
Yeah.
Good song.
No one would look at me and be like, "Oh, you like classic rock, Cody?" Yeah.
The White Sox sort of ruined Journey for me.
I get that.
And their number one song is about a prostitute from Detroit. Also, listen to the lyrics, folks. All right, first half duds. We could have a long list. This could be a longer segment.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be mean. At least too mean. Mm-hmm. Cody, who would be your definite first half dud?
I mean, there's a long list of like those marginal guys that we could go off, and I could go off on all of them. But if we're talking about the big money, the guys that have, that have underperformed, Dansby Swanson for me is number one. And I've been a defender. When he was struggling going into May and June and like mid-May, all these, like I sat and was like, he's gonna hit eventually. I'm still confident, and at the very least be a league average hitter, and still give you great defense. Well, that month of April was hard to watch for him defensively, considering the standard that he has set himself for defense. But he has been a lot better defensively since April ended. Up there and outs above average. I don't know the actual number, but I know it's definitely up there now. But the offense, I mean, he's got like a 79 WRC plus here at the break. And I'll say this, over the stretch of good baseball, he has been hitting. And I hope it's a sign of what we're going to see the last 2.5 months. But if we're talking about the overall first half of the season, to me, Dansby Swanson is a big reason why this team has underperformed. Because even though he's giving you defense, he's not even giving you a league average bat. That's all I asked for him. I asked for him to be a 100 to 110 WRC plus. That's what he's been for his career, for the most part. When he's with the Braves, what he was last year, hell, he was big. He was a better offensive player than that last year. But that's the bare minimum of what I'm asking. I'm asking for elite defense and a league average bat at worst, and he hasn't even been a league average bat. So. It's one half. It's not to say that I'm going to sit here and start comparing him to Jason Hayward contract, which is stupid to begin with because both players are completely different and they have nothing to do with what the Cubs actually asked them to be. The Cubs signed Dansby Swanson particularly for defense and to be a league average hitter because that's what he's basically been with the Atlanta Braves his entire career before he came here. They signed Jason Hayward because he had the best offensive season of his career with the Cardinals going into 2016, and he was legitimately the most highly touted position player in the offseason going into right before the 2016 season. They signed Jason Hayward for offense to go with the already great defense they had. They legitimately thought Jason Hayward was going to be a better offensive player the next handful of years that the Cubs were going to have him. So to me, I look at it a lot differently. I'm not telling y'all how to fan. I'm not telling you that it has to be this way or that way, but that's how I look at it. All right. But at the end of the day, at least this year, he has not played up to standard. He just for him, I'm sure he's been just as frustrated as we or me or the people in the YouTube chat. I guarantee it. He's got to hit more. He's got to be at least a league average hitter. That is all I'm asking, for him to be a league average hitter. And he just hasn't done that for the last 2.5 months, 3.5 months.
No, I think, we've talked about just the offense being really underperforming for a while there. Like Dansby was one of those guys that you just weren't – he may have a good day, but it was like mixed in with a bunch of bad days at the play. You weren't getting any consistency from him and just not to the level where they need him to be in this lineup. Like you said, Cody, the last week or so, he's been better. Like since that second game in Baltimore, this is 6 games, so take it with a grain of salt ish. But 364 batting average, 909 OPS, had the homer, 3 RBIs, 8 hits and 22 plate appearances. So a better week, but a week does not change what the last 2 months were for him.
I would say is like Sunday. The Sunday game against the Angels was probably like the sign of him starting to do something, because I felt like if I remember correctly, that Sunday game against the Angels was like, okay, he's doing something here, and
he started hitting the ball a little harder, even if
I
think one was like a line out.
Yeah, and he hit I think the thing over the last week that he's been doing is taking the ball the other way more, because this is the big thing, the big, and everyone said this isn't news. He's been hitting too many ground balls. He's got a career high in ground ball rate, and he's been pulling the ball way too much. When he starts taking the ball to right field, that's when you know he's right. And he has been doing that over the last week. So, I didn't mention, there was that little period where he was hurt, and the 2 weeks before he was actually put on the injured list, he was playing through an injury. And whether I can be mad at him about trying to play through it, I can be mad at the Cubs for letting him try to play through it, all of that. But at the same time, at the end of the day, you got to perform, man.
I do think, sorry, Ryan, I was just going to say real quick, I do think that if we may play a game of over-under here in the next couple of days, if I had to go for someone to have over, like a better second half, Dansby's on that list because if somebody could be helped by like a whole week off, if it is part of the leg and that has been a problem, I think it may help him more than some other guys even.
Possible. Sure. I mean, he's definitely a candidate for just a better second half. Again, because the first half just did not go, particularly on the offense, just the way it needed to go. So candidate for a little more positive regression in the second half, and the Cubs, at this point, the Cubs just need it. So and so it kind of has to happen because they need that from him. I think my dud would be, my biggest dud would be Yan Gomes, I think. I mean, he got DFA'd. Like, he went from being their number one catcher. He probably was their most clutch hitter last year. A very big part of how they turned the season around was him doing what he was able to do at the bat. I think he still ended up like a slightly below league average hitter, but in clutch situations, high leverage situations, he felt like he came through every single time for him. So you combine that with what he was able to do defensively, and he was a very valuable player for someone not making a whole lot of money. Like, you felt good about having him back there. So going into this year when it was him and Miguel Amaya, you felt like, okay, Yan Gomes is going to be your number one, and hopefully he brings at least close to what he was doing last year, brings that over to 2024, and that helps Amaya continue to like learn the MLB game at a slower pace. But then just Yan was not getting it done. Like, I'm definitely not on offense, even defense. It looked like he took a step back. He wasn't getting it done, and that really hurt because then, obviously Miguel Amaya is thrust into a starting role very early on in the season, and he's still kind of learning how to hit at the big league level, and he's still learning, catching. He's got a lot of things getting thrown at him very quickly at a young age, like not a whole lot of experience at the big league level. And so like that, I think the fact that Yan just wasn't able to help that transition go a little slower for him because he wasn't just providing much value at all for the team in general, I think that really hurt. I mean, we've seen how the catching position is like the thing that's needed to be addressed most all season. And that's the fact that Yan just wasn't able to be anywhere close to what he was last season for this team. The fact that he was DFA'd in the first half, that just, I mean, to me, that's just like the probably biggest disappointing part of the season thus far is just Yan not being able to do anything close to where he was last year.
Yeah, and like I've said this a handful of times, like the biggest disappointment for Gomes for me is the fact that the defense was not anywhere close to what it was last year. Like, I wasn't surprised to see at one point this guy was hitting below 200 after having the year he had last year, like in a year that we did not expect him to hit, right? So I wasn't disappointed or shocked by the lack of offense from Gomes. I was disappointed by the framing numbers being bad and just the inability to throw runners out like he did last year. At the same time, though, 37 years old, like, and this is why, like, he's like one of those marginal signings, like they didn't have to pick up the option. They could have got someone else, I'm just saying, like,
we all liked it though.
Yeah, I think everyone
I think last year convinced us it was a great thing to march back out. It convinced the Cubs to march back out. But we probably should have looked at common sense a little bit more, and so should the Cubs, because this isn't a shocking thing that he didn't have. You knew there'd be some regression. I just didn't think it'd be this drastic. And the live YouTube chat is reading my mind. Bootzilla said that position, number one, biggest dud in the season.
If Amaya hits at least, we probably don't feel nearly as bad. Yeah. If Amaya hits like he has the last week or ever since he changed his stance or whatever, if he hits like that over the last 3 months, we probably don't feel nearly as bad about the catching position. Yeah. And I do think Tomas Nido has stepped in nicely. He had a homer yesterday. He has thrown a few runners out. I'm not saying that he's the answer. If they go on a hot stretch, I don't know if they still try to add another catcher, because I don't like the idea of having 3 catchers on the roster, considering how you already have, at some point, you might have 5 outfielders, and like you can't, like, it's just not going to be able to fit, right? So that's a whole thing. But yeah, Gomes for sure a dud, and it's unfortunate too because he seemed like such a great dude.
It's the only really position where I would consider accepting a mild
rental. Like
at the trade deadline.
Maybe.
If you're not giving up too much, a mild rental, that's the only position I'd be okay with, because I think that could make a difference. Whereas I think the bullpen and things can kind of work themselves out in the second half with guys you have coming back. But I don't know. Quas was there's a lot of guys that are just marginal major leaguers right now. Madrigal, Brewer, Quas. I think personally, I don't know any other way, and I'm a fan of his. Morel was a dud in the first half of the season. He was. His defense, it didn't work. Yep. We don't know how long it'll last, and the offense has regressed again, even though the home runs are there. So I'm hoping for a big second half from him, but we'll see. Yeah. I think Hector Neris, maybe not his fault, but he has been a dud in the first half too. He was your one free agent addition to the bullpen, and it has helped not at all.
Yeah, well, Morel, that was May. It was all of May when it looked like it was a lot of bad luck. The BABIP was so low, the exit velos and all of the batted ball data was still so good, and you're like, his expected stats were great, and you're like, this can't last forever. But yeah, since then, I think for the most part, a lot of that has not looked as good, right? Like the batted ball data has gotten a little worse. I still think the approach at the plate has been good as far as walks and strikeouts and that kind of stuff and chasing. But I think you are anecdotally seeing him in between on pitches and taking more pitches in the zone than he was earlier in the year when you were like, the approach is still so good. I think that's been something that's hurt him a little bit. And so, yeah, I'd agree with Luke in that you felt like it's only a matter of time till the numbers started to improve, because all this other data, underlying data, was telling us that it was that it should. But it really hasn't that to much of a positive extent. And so, yeah, you're looking at it's to the point where you're seeing people saying Morel needs to be benched, Morel needs to whatever it is, and you're like, did not expect that going into this year. I think that's so when you talk about him being a dud, it's just you expected him to have at least a solid year, and not necessarily getting that, or at least you're not getting it to the extent that you thought you would. Giving him the keys to third, letting him play every day. You thought he'd have at least offensively a lot better year, and you're not really getting that.
Yeah, everyone knows I'm a big supporter.
96 WRC plus, by the way.
96, so
below league average.
Below league average, barely.
And the worst defensive third baseman.
I think it's still up there for sure.
Yes,
I think he's still number one worst.
Yeah. Everyone, like I was saying, everyone knows I'm a big Morel defender. When Sarah, our producer, slanders, I want to tell her to go jump in the lake.
I have nothing to say.
Out, though.
I see you in the YouTube chat. Okay?
I know.
It's a good day to be a lake jumper.
It is a good one.
Yeah, it is a good day to be a lake jumper, to be fair. But in all seriousness, I tweeted the other day, I'm never giving up on Christopher Morel. I'm really not giving up on him. He reminds, the slander and everything, it reminds me all so much of watching Kyle Schwarber the first couple years after the ACL injury with the Cubs. This guy, we saw it yesterday, the raw power that he displays. I think Cliff Floyd said it best on Marquee on Saturday night. I'm a real sicko. I watched the Marquee postgame after those two games and spent the entire day watching the Cubs. I watched that postgame. And why?
That's almost disturbing.
I know. But I'm glad I watched it, because Cliff Floyd had great insight on Christopher Morel. And he talked about how he, like I said about Dansby, is not taking the ball to right center either. He's not taking the ball the other way. And until he starts to show that more, he is not going things aren't probably going to change. And you guys know, I'm not some hitting expert. The guy played in the major leagues for a really long time. He knows what he's talking about. I'm more likely to listen to him and at least that's probably a good reason why things haven't gone his way. Like you said, Ryan, a little bit in between. It feels like every at bat he's check swinging at least once or twice. And yeah, he's let some, he's gotten screwed on a few strike three calls on balls that are outside the zone, but just barely not there. And then he's gotten, gifted some too. It's all kind of evened out. I think that his thing, like I said with Dansby, probably good to have a good week off here, and hopefully it transcends, because he did have a great, his best game. You can argue yesterday was his best game of the season. 2-homer game. You know what I mean?
First multi-homer game, right?
Right. So like, the reason that it reminds me so much of Kyle Schwarber when he first came back to the Cubs and after the ACL injury and post 2016 is he leads the team in homers. He's 18 homers. He's still hitting the ball out of the park. He just needs to hit a little bit more. And I think he can develop into what I think is an all-star caliber player. Has it taken a bump in a road this year? And am I surprised by that? Yes, because I felt like last year he was better. He was significantly better than year one when he first came up. So as Theo Epstein always says, development isn't always linear. I think that there are good things from this first half from him in terms of the walk rate and the K rate. But yeah, they need him. They need him to produce more. I can complain about the front office not, bringing someone in to go with him, Bellinger and Saez, that's more proven. But at the same time, we also as a fan, they need him. We need him to perform better. So yeah, I would agree he was a dud, and it's been a massive disappointment. But I'm still in. I'm still all in. I'm going down with the ship with the guy.
It's one of those things. I think like he has the tools. Like he has the raw power. He has the athleticism. He has all that, and you're just trying to get to a point where it clicks for him. And like I think actually I'm looking at his last 11 games or so. Again, it's just small sample sizes, so it may just be more of like looking for silver linings. But his last 11 games going to the break, he hit 250. He had a 798 OPS. He did strike out 15 times and only walked twice. So there's a little give and take, obviously, in that. But a little bit results-wise, a little bit better over the last week and a half or so of games. You need to get him to a point where it's you see everything click for him. I think he has the tools to be a really good hitter. I don't know if he'll ever be a superstar bat, but I think he has the tools to be a really positive part of this lineup now and in the future. But you just got to get him to a point, like I said, where it clicks for him, and he doesn't look in between. Like the walk rates are still good in the strike. Like he's not chasing a lot. Like all the underlying stuff says it's good, but then at some point you need the results too. And he's hitting 202 of the 690 OPS going into the All-Star break. It just at the end of the day, it does have to improve, right? Like I said it earlier. At some point you are what your record is as a team. Well, at some point you are what your stats say you are as a hitter too, because you can't just go an entire year and saying, man, he got really unlucky. Like the numbers do have to improve, and along with Swanson, I think Morel is another guy that you're like, okay, candidate for some positive regression in the second half. But he's another guy that just got to go out and do it because they need that from him.
Yeah. And
Eva Wax says, by the way, got to be done with him at third base. It might have to say he'll never be good at third. I'm not ready to go there. I just don't think they need to play him at third in the second half of the season. Yeah. We've seen a good sample size. If he wants to work on that nonstop in the offseason and come back at spring training and say, look how much better I am, I'm open to that conversation. But if you're trying to get to the postseason right now, that experiment for me is over in the second half. For the most part. Not every day, but way less often than he's playing third base now.
That's my problem with Morel. Like, I like him, and I like when he's hot.
Don't lie, Sarah.
I don't like his position. I think that's my biggest issue with him is that he's not playing the position that is best for him, and it's frustrating.
So that's up to the manager, Sarah. Like, the second half, that's going to be a manager decision.
Right.
And I'm not,
like he said, like you're seeing that more Miles Mastrobuoni getting third base starts and Morel de-aging. Like obviously that's been helped. Like that's they've been able to do that because of Cody Bellinger's injury. So say us back out in the outfield, Bush at first, PCA in the center. You do have more time, or you do have more open time at the DH position where you can put Morel. But as we've talked, like when once guys start getting healthy, it's gonna be. All right, well, how do you kind of fit this puzzle together?
Right. Well, the whole third base thing, I'm not letting up on this. I mean, they could have figured this out last year. And maybe they did, and maybe Craig Counsell was just bullish on it, okay? Maybe. Because he was right. They need to play Morel every day. Coming in the year, you needed to play Morel every day, and third base was an open spot, all right? It
was the right call.
So I can agree to disagree on that fact. That factor, the fact that they just never tried to figure it out last season. But I tend to agree with Luke on the fact that I haven't given up on him at third base yet, because even though the outs above average are terrible and all this and that, I do feel like in some aspects it has improved. But you don't have to play him at third base every single day. And unless they shake this roster up a little bit, which I'm not against, then maybe you can play him at second base or, play him, maybe he is just the DH. I don't know. All I know is that the Cubs, the way they act these last couple years under this front office, they like to be able to utilize the DH with other guys and not just have one guy there. I'm not saying that I support that. I'm not saying that it's the right move, but I just think that if they eventually move on from Morel, he is absolutely going to come back to haunt us. If there is one player on this roster that will absolutely haunt us, if we move on from him just because you couldn't find a goddamn position for him, it will feel just like Kyle Schwarber all over again.
Hopefully not Jackson Ferris, too.
Oh,
so that was
Jackson
just for Barb.
Ferris.
That was just for Barb. I'm kidding. All right, we got 5 minutes left in the show. Speaking of Morel, Jim Edmonds, former Cardinal, now Cardinal broadcaster, and former Cub,
True.
does not like Morel's home run trot. Of all the dud things I heard in the first half of the season, that is up there.
That was up there.
Because, Jim, I don't remember anybody saying, hey, this guy in center field plays 3 steps in so he can make every catch look like it's a diving catch. I never heard it. So why are you worried about a guy putting a little flair into his home run trot? By the way, everybody does the hand grenade thing. The whole team does it.
Yeah.
So do you hate the whole team's home run celebration?
I just don't like. I don't get why it's such a big issue if a guy celebrates a home run. To me, it's just like the players can police the game themselves, right? Like,
right.
Why if you're just watching the game, like getting mad at another, they hit a home run.
It doesn't even deserve like a throwing it, like it's throwing at the batter if he. It's just the dumbest thing ever. Yeah. I know Cody hates it.
I don't think they deserve the throwing at a batter either. But if the other team feels that way, that's how. That's how players have policed the game forever.
Right.
Like, you don't need to be in the booth yelling about it. Whoever the team is, whoever the player is, I generally have no qualms with guys celebrating a home run because they hit a freaking home run. If you don't want them to celebrate,
when you hit them
one up.
When it's like Kenny Powers and he's going like this and he's running down to first base and he's doing the 6 shooters at the pitcher. That's totally different. This is nothing.
Yeah.
What do you think, Cody? You like it? You like Jim Edmonds' rant?
No.
I didn't think so.
Okay. You guys know that Paul Skeens is starting in the All-Star game tomorrow, right?
Yeah, right.
And I think we can all confidently sit here and say that Paul Skeens really doesn't deserve to start in the All-Star game. I personally don't think he deserves to start in the All-Star game. But you know why he's starting the All-Star game? Because his girlfriend's popular on TikTok, so that's going to get the young people to come in, and he's a good he comes off as a good dude. And he's marketable because he's been one of the most hyped up pitchers since like Steven Strasburg for sure. We all know Paul Skeens is starting the All-Star game tomorrow for the National League because of marketing, not because he didn't earn it. And the only reason he didn't earn it is because he didn't start the year with the Pirates. To me, like, there's other guys who have pitched more and have more innings and have been just as good who deserve it. You can in my opinion, you could still argue Shota deserves to be in that spot. That's not the point of what I'm getting at here. The point is that what Jim Edmonds did yesterday, it's just another one of those goddamn old man yells at cloud bullshit. It's so ridiculous. This is why...
And it was directed at me.
It's not directed at Luke. This is why the game, like MLB, continues to not even be close. It doesn't even come close to the NFL, the NBA, and at some point, I won't be surprised if the NHL somehow surpasses MLB, which would be an absolute disgrace for a team for a sport that started in Canada to surpass America's pastime. Not the point as well.
There we go.
Jim Edmonds is an absolute clown. It's clown bullshit that he did yesterday. And again, I'm not someone who tells people how to fan or how to react to things, but Jim Edmonds, you are the last person who should be telling someone how to celebrate when you have been divorced like 3 times, brother. All right? It's an absolute joke. Your city's a joke, your organization's a joke, and your broadcast is a joke. Rant over.
And he made fun of somebody's
your catcher ran to first. When your catcher ran to first base when he played in the game, he basically walked to first base, which isn't even hustling. So don't tell me what's right and what's wrong. All right, now I'm done.
That one got personal.
That went from dud to turd burger.
That one got personal.
Yeah, that one got personal.
It's so dumb. Am I wrong? Like those type of broadcast clips that always go viral. It's a reason why baseball continues to not grow or be, anywhere close to where the NFL or the NBA is. It's stupid. Absolutely stupid. Jim Edmonds a clown.
It was a loser comment, both of them, about the fans' weight and also about the home run trot. Anyways, we're going to keep it positive, hopefully, on the next couple days. We've got some guests coming up. We got a special guest for sure on Wednesday. We have a special podcast coming up on Thursday where we will rank the top 10 most exciting Cubs games of all time. It's part of a thing that we're starting out on social media today, right?
Yeah.
Top, 25?
21 and 20 through 25 through 21 went out
games
today.
in Chicago sports history. We're going to pull that aside and just say Cubs top 10 games most exciting. Go ahead and tweet us at CHGO Cubs. Let us know what your top 10 might be, and we'll see if we take some of those into consideration for Thursday's show.
Yeah, the first 5 came out for all of Chicago sports today.
Right.
25 to 21 came out today.
Which,
Coming out all week.
unfortunately, Ryan Sandberg behind the Tim Anderson Field of Dreams game.
Comical.
Yeah.
Comical,
don't
but
talk to me about
nobody asked me.
Clown foolery now. All
Nobody
right?
asked me. Nobody asked me. All right. And Jim Cook, go away. Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs podcast. We're back tomorrow live at 1:20 right here. Until then, thanks for listening to the podcast. Thanks for watching on YouTube, and we will see you tomorrow. Until then, fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.